I spoke to a group in Ballinasloe just recently and mentioned around the vaping and the HHC, and there was not one parent in the audience that had ever heard of it. And they, of course, their questions was just the same as the 12-year-old son or daughter, why it is being allowed, be sold.
Hello and welcome to The Way. I'm Wendy Grace. Well, an unfortunate statistic here in Ireland is that there's an ever-increasing issue with substance abuse, drug and alcohol addiction, particularly among young people. But there is a pastoral response to this, whether it's in schools or parishes. And join with me to discuss a little bit about this and some of the issues that young people in particular are facing today, but also some of the solutions that is being proposed from a pastoral perspective. I have Darren Butler from the Irish Bishops' Drugs Initiative. It's great to have you with us, Darren. For those who haven't heard of the IBDI, tell us a little bit about the work that you do.
Yeah, well, the IBDI was established in 1997 as a pastoral response to substance misuse. Through the 80s and 90s, drugs became a huge issue all over Ireland, and the bishops felt that, as a caring church, we need to make some kind of an effort to help the communities and parishes. So it's evolved. It was always a needs-led, community-based work, and over the years we have had many different programs that have run in parishes. But as it says, it is needs-led, and today our needs of our parishes all seem to be revolve around young people especially, and schools. So a lot of the work at the moment that I would be doing would be working in schools with sports groups, confirmation classes especially, transition year students. We would work maybe with transition years around peer programs where we would train them on a particular program, and they would then go into the local sixth class, and become peer educators.
Because that's really powerful, isn't it? Peer to peer.
Very powerful, yeah. And I mean, it's one thing me standing in front of, the sixth class, but when their peers come in from transition year, they're looking up to them, and, you can see them listening. Very, very powerful. So, it's not an easy thing to get going because you've got to have buy-in from the parish and the community.
But it's powerful when it does get going.
It's very, very powerful. We've had great success with it. We've had a number of young people who have volunteered to be peer educators purely from their experience going back 6-7 years ago when they were in sixth class during their confirmation preparation and that. So that kind of gives us an evaluation that it works, because, a lot of people would understand in drug education and awareness, it's very hard to evaluate long term, because you have the young people at a certain time and then they move on. They're not in your program
you
for a long
the long-term impacts. You hope it has.
You hope it has, and with these young people, we kind of at least have that evaluation coming back to us that they felt it was very worthy of them receiving it, and now they want to be part of it as a peer educator as well.
What are the big issues that you're seeing, Darren, facing young people today?
The usual ones that we've all grown up with: alcohol, smoking and drugs, illegal drugs are, always going to be there, fortunately. And at this moment in time, we have serious issue with vapes. We have a particular vape that's on the market now that a lot of young people are very aware of. It contains a chemical called HHC, which mimics, it's a synthetic cannabinoid, which is basically a man-made chemical. It's a man-made drug in a laboratory, and it's meant to mimic the cannabis, the THC that is in cannabis, which is the chemical that gives
This is legal?
This is legal. This has been sold in vape shops online. Just as today, Nona, I was coming to speak to you, I looked at the internet, and the first Irish website that came up was selling 82 different types of vapes with HHC, with this chemical in it. And
they're kind of marketed towards younger people, aren't they? The colours of them, the flavours.
Yes,
things.
Absolutely.
And they're made to seem harmless.
Yes, that's it. And the one argument I get when I speak to young people is, if they're so dangerous, why are they being sold?
Why are they legal?
Yeah.
How do you combat that?
Oh, that's a tough question that you always get. And I suppose one way I would combat it and answer it is, we were told that vapes were going to be assisting people who were smoking, who were addicted to nicotine. We were told that it was going to help them stop smoking. And if that had worked, I was very excited when I heard vaping was coming out, as many were, including the medical doctors. Everybody was very excited.
If it could help people
If it
quit
could help
smoking,
people,
yeah.
because we had done so much work. If you think of the work that has gone on in Ireland with the government, like the Irish Cancer Society, schools, even parents coming on board and explaining to young people about cigarette smoking, and even parents that got to a stage where they may well smoked, but they understood that they had an addiction, but they didn't want their children to go down
pass it
that
on to
road,
them, yeah.
and we had done so much work around cigarette smoking that, my work started 15 years ago with the Irish Bishops Drugs Initiative, and smoking was a big part of what I spoke about to young people. That started to decline because the numbers declined, and you realise that the young people,
But they're replacing it with vaping,
now
basically.
they've
Yeah.
replaced with vaping. So we're gone full circle. We know that if you look back at some, I show the young people some of the advertisements from smoking 50, 60 years ago, and some of the vaping advertisements that are around the world today. Now, for instance, we in Ireland, we're pretty good with the advertisement. We've done a lot of work there with the government, and but around the world you can see all the similarities. Like, we've gone full circle, and we're just repeating history again. But the difference today is where we knew with the cigarettes with nicotine was the addictive chemical. We knew there was, cancerous chemicals in it. Now with the vapes, we really don't know for sure what's in them. But the fact that we're able to...
Your logic would tell you though, wouldn't it? That, like when you look at the list of ingredients.
Yes.
And depending on the vape, some of them can have a way stronger nicotine dose than smoking a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, and logic tells us that if there's nicotine in cigarettes and that's the addictive chemical, if there's nicotine in vapes, we're just going to have an addiction to vapes, right? So it's just repeating. We at the time, I suppose we all thought that there would have been a replacement chemical for nicotine that would have helped people stop the addiction.
But the synthetic cannabis is very worrying, and you are asking yourself the question, hang on a second, how is this legal? Because surely, again, the same logic flows that there could be similar effects in terms of, impacts on the development of your brain, psychotic breaks, things like that have been associated with cannabis use.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do we know about that?
Well, we know what we're hearing an awful lot about it, especially this year. Myself, I've had two parents who have contacted me. One lady with a daughter who's 17, and another lady with her son was also 17. They both have had horrific experiences in the last 4 to 5 weeks. The young girl was like any other 17-year-old young girl, doing very well in school, had no issues. She started to vape what she thought was normal cigarette vapes, and then she found these HHC vapes, which are heavily advertised, especially online. She started to smoke them. She quickly became addicted to them. It then brought around a lot of psychotic episodes for her. She became very withdrawn. She went through a phase of not being able to leave home. And she's also, actually going for addiction counselling to try and stop the vaping. Now, that was a legally bought vape. So the shops would say we're not doing anything wrong, which, they're not. Morally, people know what's in these, but the shops are not doing anything wrong by selling them. And the young lad, he also had an issue. He went out to a function, had never vaped, where the young girl did vape. This young lad didn't vape, and peer pressure played a part, which that's everyday life for young people. And he took 5 puffs of this particular vape. He wasn't told it was a HHC vape. He probably wouldn't have mattered because he didn't understand what that would have meant. And after 5 puffs, he collapsed. His heart rate went through the roof. His blood pressure dropped to a very low level. The ambulance was called. His mother was called. She lived local, thankfully. And when I spoke to her, she was very visibly upset. When she got to the hotel where the function was, her son was lying on the ground, and the ambulance had just come. She, of course, like any mother, wanted him straight to the hospital, and they were very concerned that if they couldn't stabilize his blood pressure and his heart rate, that he wouldn't make it to the hospital. When you say that, it's very startling, and that's the kind of talk we had around illegal drugs over the years. Like that young lad, you know, had a mirror image of an overdose from illegally bought vape, and he never knew anything about it. It didn't matter if it was HHC or ABC, he would not have known the difference.
And so for parents that are watching or listening, it's very frustrating because of these items, as you say, they're legal in the absence of not having legislation surrounding this. Does it come back to, well, empowering young people with knowledge
It certainly
on
does.
these types of things and the impact they
It
can have?
certainly does, but I think, you know, on the bigger scale, we also have to empower the parents. You know, parents' job today is one of the hardest jobs in the world. You know, and I think, you know, there can be a million books through helping parents, but you know, there's nothing ever going to show a parent how to parent. Every young person is unique. Every parent is unique.
And the challenges that they have.
And the
really,
challenges
yeah.
are changing all the time. You know, yeah, as soon as something could go to print, it's gone out of date. You know, and so we need to you know, get the parents on board, so they're educated and they have the awareness of this. Because, like, an example would be, I spoke to a number of parents. Part of the program we do, if I speak to the sixth class confirmation class in the school, I also get opportunity sometimes to speak to their parents maybe that evening, so they both have something that they can talk about, because they've both kind of been there at a talk with me. And I spoke to a group in Ballinasloe just recently and mentioned around the vaping and the HHC, and there was not one parent in the audience that had ever heard of it. And they, of course, their questions was just the same as the 12-year-old son or daughter. Why are these being allowed, you know, be sold? Now, not just ourselves, lots of organisations are putting pressure on the government to bring in legislation. You may have remembered I think it was 2010 or 2009, we had head shops that came out, and there was a lot of psychotic synthetic cannabinoids, very similar to what we have here now in this vape. And we quickly got that shut down and they were made illegal. You know, the government are saying that they're working on it, and I think the EU is working on it, but we really need to get going faster, because I think at this moment there's 20 countries in Europe who have banned them. So it's, you know,
Yeah, we're falling a bit behind.
yeah, and that's not good, because history shows us when we fall behind, it takes maybe a death.
Yeah,
And
why it has to. Sadly, sometimes it's a tragedy that gets
sometimes
people,
it is unfortunate.
Yeah, and we don't want that to happen. That's for
No,
sure.
of course not.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the pledge.
Yes.
When I saw this come up, I thought, yeah, it's a long time ago since my confirmation, but I remember taking it. I remember the chats around it. It was probably something back then that was quite popular, and more the curiosity of what are you pledging not to
Yes.
do? What age you're gonna wait till you take a drink or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Has it fallen in popularity, or?
It has. It probably, you know, different areas, different parishes. Some have dropped it, unfortunately. Some would have a silent pledge where the young people kind of just stand and make a silent pledge. You know,
I remember ours were stuck up in the church, you know, your
Okay.
name and your pledge and everything. It was certainly
good.
very public, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, even though that was great, it didn't mean it worked, because there's one thing having the conversation and what are you doing and you know, what are your pledge against, but you know, today our young people are in a world of instant information. Everything is instant. So we need to be a little bit more kind of, I suppose, up to date with them, and we need to give them the reasons why we want them to take the pledge. It's not just you know, a promise before God. It's not just because it's part of our confirmation preparation service allied, or even, you know, the confirmation ceremony. We need to show them that, you know, it's actually because of their health. You know, young people's brains are not fully formed till 23 now is the thought, but because it's 18 in Ireland for legally to drink, and that we encourage them to a minimum get to 18, not because we think it's a good idea, not because our parents don't want us, or teachers are telling us, or someone like
The why
myself.
behind it.
It's why, and it's because we want to protect our brains, and that's kind of the information and the program that I do with them. That, you know, this is their first real kind of how would you say that, you know, up to now, their parents, their teachers, their principals have all made their decisions for them. You know, life has been quite easy up to 12, but as they get into secondary school, you know, it's a huge step. most young people are great and they sail through it, and it's a fabulous experience, and school has
There's a lot of
changed.
change and a lot of pressure.
A lot of change.
Teenage years and all that. Yeah.
Absolutely. But some young people struggle with that. And we need, they start making decisions for themselves, and that's new. That's new. So we want them to encourage them to let this be your first big decision. You're going to make it, not because your parents want you or because your teacher says or Darren comes into your classroom, because you want to stay healthy. You want to give yourself the best opportunity.
How did they receive that messaging, Darren, of empowering with the knowledge of, look, this is the impact that it will have on your mind and your body if you take alcohol or do this drug or whatever? Are they receptive to it?
Yeah, no, they absolutely are, and the discussions are great. You often go in with a time to talk to them, and you will easily double it because the discussion that they so young people are great. I mean,
they want to talk about it.
They want to talk about it. They ask great questions, and sometimes you haven't got the answers for them, But the one thing they do is they have an interest. Because you're bringing it real, that's their body.
Yeah, and you're listening to them and empowering them.
Absolutely.
So what will this 2026 pledge initiative look like?
Well, we're hoping to relaunch the pledge so that we try and get all parishes on board again.
Kind of saying, take another look at this.
Yes, let's have a go at this together. Make it, I suppose a lot of people over the years, when I've done a little bit of research over it, parents maybe thought it was a little bit outdated, And one thing we certainly want to do, because a lot of parishes still only have alcohol as the main substance that they ask young people to abstain from. So for sure, what we will be including will be smoking and vaping. Obviously vaping's a big issue, but I would have concerns for some young people as they go into late teens, into maybe university, college, that they may well start looking at vaping as kind of something that young people are doing, and they've matured now and they may just turn to smoking. It's happened in America, and it could easily happen here.
Is it also the case, Darren, that obviously having young people think about the pledge and decide what they want to do, that even if it empowers a young person to delay,
yes,
that maybe they put 16, maybe they put 18 before taking a drink, but even if they delay by a few years, that's a positive.
Oh yeah, all research shows that the longer we can delay young people in experimenting with the likes of alcohol, smoking, vaping, the likelihood of them having any issues in adulthood is very, very low. A lot of research shows that young people who start young, then the habit sets in and it's just part of their life. So, again, if we can get to 18, that's the big, with the encouragement. And, a lot of young people, it's very encouraging because I do a lot of work with transition years, and it's very encouraging, when you hear them talk about that they don't smoke and they don't drink. We have a very healthy generation of teenagers in our...
We're saying that Gen Z, even though there's a lot of pressure and there is obviously issues with some of the things we've been talking about, but that they're probably more health conscious than previous generations?
Absolutely, they are. Now, vaping is a big worry for that. That could be the one thing that could actually destroy that generation in 20 years' time, and that's the concern at the moment. But certainly, when it comes to alcohol or cigarettes, a lot of young people, if you ask a lot of young people out of the three, vaping, cigarettes and alcohol, what would be the choice of under 18s? A lot are saying vaping. It's just that's where they're at.
Probably most parents watching this wouldn't be aware of, as you said, or it wouldn't be top of their agenda because you're thinking of maybe what were issues when you were growing up and things like that.
Absolutely, so, the challenge.
As you say, it's empowering the parents and empowering young people.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the same time. So,
absolutely.
Why would you encourage parishes and schools to get back on the pledge?
Well, as a caring church, we have an opportunity. We have a window to speak to our young people of the parish that no other programme in Ireland has. And the pledge is unique to Ireland. It's not in any other country in the world. And we have this opportunity where we can get this information and awareness to them. Teachers are amazing and the work they do is great, but that's not part of their curriculum. They have the SPHE programme, and we hope we're going to put together resources to help the teachers, because like last year I would have probably facilitated about 92 confirmation groups. And there's only a limit because it's only myself, and there's only a limit of the amount you can get to, confirmation season being kind of January, May to May at the best. So we're looking at putting together resources that teachers can go online and they can, as part
And use
of,
them in the classroom.
yeah, and you know, as in partnership with the Grow and Love program, you know, we have something there that is great and it's working, and maybe we can just have a module alongside that around the pledge where teachers can have instant access to some maybe videos of those TYs, the teenagers in the peer program. We're going to film them for the young people.
Saying this is the positive impact this choice had for me in my life.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Which is powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're hoping all parishes will come on board. We're hoping they'll see the benefits of it, and you know, there's actually not an awful lot for the parish that need to do. Just support it, maybe introduce it, you know, and then we can look at it from there. But certainly, you know, it's an opportunity that we have that we don't want to lose. The opportunity to talk to our young children and parents. The pledge is going to involve bring in the parents as well, where we will have resources like podcasts for parents as well. Because again, I don't speak to all parents groups, but the world's changing today, where parents in cars or walking or running, where they might just stick on as part of the preparation for confirmation a podcast that might just give them
the tools that they need.
yeah.
Well, it's been great just to hear about the work that's going on, and very encouraging for parents as well. And thanks so much for being with us today,
No,
Darren.
thank you very much for the invitation.
And you can get more information about the work of the Irish Bishops Drugs Initiative at their website, which is irishbishopsdrugsinitiative.ie, and you can stay up to date there.